Teofimo Lopez's career is a roller coaster for real. I mean, did you see the graphic leading up to this fight where they were talking about all the ups and downs and the twists and turns of his career? Because that's exactly how this thing turns out. I mean, he doesn't believe in just finding any kind of steady point, any kind of plateau, any kind of rhythm at all. I mean, ever since he made that ascent, it's just been nothing but ups and downs, and it mirrors outside the ring too. Ironically, maybe it makes perfect sense, whatever the case may be. But you think about it. He goes out there and he just reaches the absolute pinnacle. I mean, the highest point that you can absolutely reach. 135 pounds lightweight division. He goes out there and as an underdog pulls out a definitive victory against Vasily Lomachenko. Nobody doubted it. Nobody thought it was a bad decision. Nobody was turning around looking at the end of the day thinking, you know what? I think Loma won that fight. I think Lomachenko deserved to get that decision. Nobody out there said that. 23 years old, the man went out there and beat somebody who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Went out there and just put it on him, right? Didn't win every round or everything crazy like that. Obviously didn't get the stoppage victory, but the man got the definitive victory at 135 pounds, snatches up all the belts, and he's sitting there on the top of the world. Then he goes over there and drops him to Kambosos. Puts in just a performance that kind of baffles everybody, right? Goes back and, fights in a way that people didn't expect, performance that we didn't expect. Just, he drops all the belts. Okay, is what it is. Then he goes over, and what do you think about those performances that he put on against Campa and Sandor Martin? Were you impressed by him? Did you think that he deserved the victory against Martin? Did you think that he looked great in those performances? Did you think that he was living up to his potential? Why do you think he looked at the camera and said, do I even still got it? It's because he knew it. He can try and play it off all he wants. He can try to say that he's media trained and he saw it, that he was doing it to try to build up buzz. I'm not buying it for a minute. We saw the performances. We know exactly what was happening. You can imagine how he was feeling because we saw how good he was before. We saw those highlight reel knockouts as he was building his way up, right? Like the dude was, people were talking about him. He's out there on Heisman night. He's got these, he's on ESPN and people are mentioning his name, and he's the double stand prospect and he's winning belts, and he goes out there and he beats Lomachenko, and then he's putting on performances against lesser people where people are actually doubting if he won the fight. People are questioning him to that degree. I mean, you think about just the highs and the lows and what that must have done and his self-confidence and how he's feeling about it. And then he's got the outside the ring, things that are going on that he's not on any kind of stable ground. And he's still just such a young guy. How's he processing all that? How's he handling all that? Makes perfect sense that it feels like complete turmoil, right? Then he goes out there and beats Josh Taylor, man. Once again, goes out there and beats a guy that puts him at the absolute tippy top of the division, pulls it off, underdog, phenomenal performance. And you're looking and you're like, dude, we always see this potential from Teofimo. We always see what he brings to the table as a fighter. The dude is so talented. He's got the fast twitch muscle fibers, and he's like a viper in the way that he can strike and the way that he can just catch and counter from shots at all angles, and that right hand that's so fast, and how he can leap in, and the way he's on the back foot, but he can also go on the front foot, the way that he can box, but he's got the power. And man, when he is doing it right, and that hand speed and the foot movement and the angles that he can work, the dude's got it all. The dude's got it all. We've seen that. Now, not to say that he's not without flaws, not to say that he can't be exploited at times here and there, that he's a perfect fighter. Nothing like that, right? I'm not trying to put dude on Mount Olympus. But what he brings to the table when he's locked in and he's fighting at 100% is incredibly impressive. But then we go out there and we see a performance like we saw against Jamaine Ortiz. And you're like, dude, he's not cutting off the ring. He's not shooting combinations. By the time the fight's all said and done, we got plenty of people, once again, I gave the fight to Jamaine Ortiz. I thought he won about a couple rounds, 3 rounds, whatever the case may be. People are looking, Jamaine Ortiz is obviously, we saw how he took the decision and the feeling that he thought that he should have got the victory and everything. Even if you thought Teofimo won that fight, and there are people who thought he won that fight, don't get me wrong. You jump on Twitter, you're listening to people, you're looking on YouTube afterwards. There's definitely a sizable amount of people who thought Teofimo won that fight. But even if you thought he won that fight, did you think that was an impressive performance? Are you looking at that and you're like, yeah, that's the man at 140 pounds. If you're looking at that and you're like, yeah, now that's the type of fight that's going to bring in even bigger fights. That's the type of fight that's going to make you super desirable. Man, not even close. You see what Terrence Crawford said after the fight? You got to remember, Teofimo, that's the fight that Teofimo wanted. This dude's out there trying to just absolutely press the line like we've never seen before. He's trying to be the man at 135, the man at 140, and now he's going over there and trying to conquer 147 pounds. Terrence Crawford, the man who went out there and just beat the brakes off Errol Spence, Teofimo Lopez is calling him out, saying he's going to move up to 147 and he's going to get the victory. I mean, what would you have to do? You'd have to put dude on Mount Rushmore if he goes out there and he was able to beat Terrence Crawford. Now, Terrence Crawford is laughing at that after that fight. He already wasn't really entertaining it. He already wasn't even looking at that as a fight. When we're talking about the fights that Terrence Crawford wants, we're talking about a fight with Canelo. That's the one that he wants. That's what's on his plate. He just went out there and beat Errol Spence. He wants to go out there and kick Canelo. He's not looking down at Teofimo Lopez, right? Teofimo Lopez is calling up to him. But after a performance like that, no way possible, right? And he let that be known. Not to mention the fact that one of the quote unquote, like I'll call it like an ugly little secret or something that people don't really talk about for the most part, is that Teofimo isn't a draw. He's not out there selling a whole bunch of pay-per-views. He's not out there pulling these massive amounts of huge ticket sales, right? It's not like this dude's this huge money generator. He's a awesome fighter, man, and he's got a big name and people love seeing him, and it's, you know, he draws some attention in those types of ways. But what exactly is he bringing to the table that a man like Terrence Crawford is, after a performance like that, going to be entertained with seeing him? And what's going to be next for him, right? And I don't mean to beat him up, right? Because at the same time, we could look at this, we could say, you know, hindsight's 2020. So when you look at that fight and you think about the style and the way in which Jamaine Ortiz fight, you look at it and you thought, of course it's going to give Teofimo problems. We've seen past fights. Think about the fight with Sandor Martin, and of course we're going to see similarities there that's going to cause trouble. We're going to see ways in which that's going to give him trouble, and maybe that style and maybe that's that way in which he fought is going to give him trouble for his whole career. Maybe we're going to see Teofimo always, you know, resort to those same types of things that just lead to things like that. And maybe he's going to need gift decisions at the times to get those victories. Maybe that's the case, or maybe it's more than that, right? So I don't want to read into it too much, but we also have to look at the past. We have to take the fight in context, and we have to look at the whole thing. We have to see this package, and we have to kind of try and read where it's going to be. So what's he going to do after this? What's the next fight going to be? Right? People have mentioned Matias. That's a dangerous fight, but I don't even think it's a fight he's going to get, right? I was listening to a Twitter call that the Boxing Voice was hosting. You know, that's a guy who typically puts out some very good information. He said that he had heard from an insider that the reason Matias wasn't going to get that fight is because Matias wanted a 2-fight contract with no options. Now, what that means is he wanted to have 2 fights on his contract, no option for Top Rank to match afterwards. So if Top Rank gives him whoever for his first fight, Teofimo for the second fight, and he were to win the fight with Teofimo, he now snatches up the belts. He's now got all the momentum in the name, and he's a free agent. Top Rank doesn't even have the ability to match whatever else some other promoter puts out there. That doesn't exactly make it an enticing deal for Top Rank, right? It doesn't exactly make Top Rank want to go out there and sign that fight, because they're going to be concerned, hey, if Matias wins this fight, the belt just walks away. Right now, the guy that we've got has the belt. So in essence, we control the belt, and we got to make these fights, and these are going to be the biggest fights in the divisions because they're the one that has the belt. Matias wins the fight, we don't have options on it, he doesn't sign to us, is that what we really want to go with? So what exactly are we going to see at 140 pounds? Because we all know what we want to see. We all know the fight that we want to see. It's the fight that's been building for a while. It's the one that's been getting talked about. Everybody wants to see Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez. I mean, think about what happened at 135 pounds with the way Teofimo goes out there and wins the belts. Then all of a sudden he loses the belts. The guy that he loses to, Devin Haney, goes out and snatches up the belts, and he ends up vacating. They go up to 140. Teofimo snatches up the belts from Josh Taylor. Of course we want to see Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez, man. We got 2 young dudes out there who have all the potential in the world. Devin Haney is just fighting top of his game right now, and what he brings to the table. I think he's one of these dudes that's going to look better at 140 pounds than he did at 135. Right? I think just he was drawing himself down too much, man. The cut was too much. He's not getting any smaller. As he's getting older, he's going to start to just thicken out a little bit and things like that. So I think he's going to look better at 140 pounds. Right? He's a strong dude, big frame. He's going to fight well there. That's the fight that we want to see. Now, it looks like he's going to be fighting Ryan Garcia April 20th. I talked about in the video how I think that's going to be a dominant victory for Devin Haney, right? I think he's going to go out there and I think he's going to be able to put a beating on Ryan Garcia. Levels to the game. Ryan Garcia isn't at the level that Devin Haney's at. That would set up the potential for a fight between Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez later in the year. Is that the type of fight that we're going to get? Is that the one that we're going to see? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what we get, not only the fight that we get from Teofimo, but how he shows up in that fight. Because I'm not writing dude off for a minute. I've been a fan of his for a long time. Love what he brings to the table. And when he shows up, when he's locked in, when he's focused, the dude is a handful for anybody to deal with. So let me know what you guys think. What did you think about the performance that he put out there against Jamaine Ortiz? Did you think that he deserved to get that victory? What do you think is going to be his next fight? And do you want to see him step in there against Devin Haney? Let me know what you guys think.